You had cancer for 10 years and you carried on working during the treatment, and all specialists are 100% sure that playing the trombone contributed to you surviving. You've played with quite a few artists, very famous artists, and I would like you to give a word to qualify each of them.
I've noticed that the people that do keep themselves current and on social media, they carry on working. There was a trombone player in the brass band that I played in, and he said, if you don't go and study the trombone, I will come and find you and I will kill you.
Hi Carol, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time. We are at the RNCM, and it's the second time I do some podcast recording here, so it's nice. Can I ask you to introduce yourself the way you'd like to be introduced?
Wow. My name's Carol Jarvis. I am a professional trombone player and voiceover artist and podcaster and cancer survivor. I'm not quite sure. All the strings to my bow, I don't know how to put them all into one sentence.
Yeah, well, I think you've got most of them. And it's, there's a few things I want to speak to you about your background, your life as a professional musician, but also speak a little bit about your story about cancer that you had for about 10 years. Is that right? Yeah, about a decade. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But I don't want also to, we'll try to make the promotion of your episode, because there's an hour-long episode that I listened twice, and it's pretty emotional in the end. So I don't want to create any shadow for it. So we'll try to tease it. So can I ask you to introduce, where you grew up, how you got into music, where you received music education?
Yeah, I grew up in the Milton Keynes area. Mm-hmm. Someone's got to come from Milton Keynes, and that is me. And the music service at that time when I was growing up was absolutely amazing. And I know that Arts Council funding is really struggling everywhere. And I think I definitely received the best years of the music funding and arts funding in that area.
What sort of funding did you receive?
It was just all through the education system, and the local music service in Milton Keynes. There were rehearsals every single evening throughout the week, and then the music centre on the Saturday used to start at 8 o'clock in the morning with composition classes, keyboard classes, like chord progressions and learning how to work with arpeggiators and all sorts of things, at like 8 o'clock in the morning, right through all the rehearsals and piano lessons and chamber music lessons, and finishing off with big band and improvisation classes, which finished about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was pretty much all day Saturday. Sunday was the only day that I wasn't busy. So I had regular school, and as soon as school finished, it was quickly rush home and then rush straight back out again to rehearsals in the evenings. So how I managed to keep up with homework, I've absolutely no idea. But
so it wasn't a specialist school you were in? It was just a separate school?
Yeah, just a regular school. And the music service in the area was just amazing. And there were no trombone players, so I was just pushed into every ensemble straight away. So orchestras, brass bands, big bands, right from the start, which I'm really glad I got the opportunity to do all genres right from the start, because that's still what I do all today. I did get offered a full-time orchestral position soon out of music college, but actually I turned it down to carry on doing everything. And
that's a luxury.
Yeah, living the dream, absolutely.
Why trombone?
Good question. I don't know where I saw a trombone for the first time, but apparently I came home from school one day and asked my dad, what's the one with the big slidey arm thing? And they said, it's a trombone. Played me some recordings. And I said, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to play. I don't know what recordings they played, but it was just, I think it was the sort of the comedy element that sort of made me want to do it. Mm-hmm. And then they got hold of a cheap trombone, and before my first ever trombone lesson, I managed to learn how to play a scale, turned up to my first lesson. And normally a brass player turns up to their first lesson not knowing how to play a note. like the buzzing of the mouthpiece, I turned up playing a scale, and the teacher was like, "Hang on a minute, what's going on here?" So yeah, and I was taught by cornet teachers right up until grade 8. Because there were no trombone players in the local area. So I just learnt from trumpet and cornet method books. And above all the notes, they've got all the fingering for the trumpet or cornet.
Yeah.
So little did I know that I was actually subconsciously learning the valve fingering while I was learning where the slide goes on the trombone. So actually fast forward to when I studied here at the RNCM, and start doing doubling instruments. I started playing the euphonium as a doubling instrument. I knew where all the notes were because I'd learnt all the fingerings back aged 11. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Did you learn also keyboard at that time?
Yeah, so we always had a piano at home, and my older brother was learning the cello and already learning piano. So it was just kind of, that's what you do. So I just copied my big brother, and I won a county music scholarship, which meant I got free piano lessons. So I was learning classical guitar, trombone, and then I started piano lessons, and then worked my way through all the grades on piano as well. But I had sort of keyboard lessons on the Saturday mornings, which were very much based around sort of learning synthesizers, learning how to program keyboards. And I didn't know that was actually going to be useful later in my career, but it has been.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was amazing, and learning how to compose and write music right from the word go, which was amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing how with me and my family, I've always had the perception that you should focus on one instrument, and playing another instrument will make you lose focus in what you're doing. But actually, when you start an instrument that is completely different, then you start improving yourself in the first instrument, and the second instrument will allow you to play even better because you've played the first instrument as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's so complementary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see so many artists now on YouTube and elsewhere who play at least 2 instruments, if not 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. And when I've had to be a fixer for tours or recording sessions or just gigs, and sometimes I remember when I toured with Seal for 6 years, the horn section, we needed a lead trumpet, another trumpet player, but also doubled on saxophone because we needed 2 saxophones, but also the trombone, which was me. So one player had to play trumpet and sax, and there was one person in the whole of the UK that I knew. Luckily, she's one of my really, really good friends. So she obviously got the gig.
That's cool. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
How many
brothers and sisters do you have?
I've got just one older brother. He's a professional cellist. So he does a lot of teaching as well. But yeah,
we're a musical family.
Yeah, we sometimes end up on gigs together, which is great.
And your parents playing music as well, or they were just interested for you to? Yeah,
just
music?
Hobby really. My dad played the accordion. He was very, very good. And my mum sings in a sort of amateur choir. So they were very, very into music, but they weren't musicians.
I've got so many questions for you. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit them within all the whole episodes. But when did you start thinking you could be a professional musician?
When I was a teenager, I was studying my A-levels. I studied music, theatre studies, and English.
Yeah.
I wanted to go into presenting. I wanted to be sort of radio or TV presenter. That was where I wanted to go. So that was why I was studying the sort of the drama side of things. The trombone and music I just found very easy, and it was just my hobby. And then I was thinking about doing auditions for maybe music college or go to drama school or something like that. And there was a trombone player. He's no longer with us, but a trombone player in the brass band that I played in. And he said, if you don't go and study the trombone, I will come and find you and I will kill you. And so I thought, well, very nice. Yeah, I know. So I just thought, well, I'll give the music college auditions a go. I'll do the auditions and see where it takes me. And I got offered a place at all of the music colleges. And I remember wanting to study at the Guildhall because on paper it just looked like what I wanted. But once I got there, I just didn't get the gut feeling that I wanted to study there. So it was actually the RNCM that drew me in. And they had everything from the big band, they had everything from the big band projects right way through to orchestras and brass bands and everything in the area in terms of all the professional orchestras, but only one conservatoire. So many more opportunities. And I thought, well, I'll go and do that because it's just easy. And I thought if I put the trombone away in the case and go and study drama or media or something like that, and I come back to the trombone 5-10 years later and I can't play it, that would annoy me.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll follow my hobby and see where it takes me. And I didn't really take it very seriously until maybe my third year out of 4 years of study, 5 years of study. But my third year, I started to go, hang on a minute, I'm getting trials with BBC Symphony Orchestra, BBC National Orchestra Wales, Halle Orchestra. I'm still a student. I seem to be doing this all right. So maybe I should start practicing. So then I started practicing. And then, lots of jobs opened in the orchestra world. So I got trials with an awful lot of orchestras. So I was in for the job for lots of professional jobs before I even left college. And I was working with all the big bands in the area and starting to do some West End shows and National Youth Jazz Orchestra as well. So I was literally full-time freelancing by my fourth year in college, and I had to ask the college to stop putting me in ensembles so I could build my freelance work up.
Which is crazy. Does that happen often to musicians?
No, I didn't.
How did you get that route? Did you just get it gradually? Or did some people inspire you or told you that some stuff were possible, like being a freelance? Or how did that happen? Because, there's so many people who want to do a career in music and they end up not doing it because they're told, or that there's big barriers, or it's really competitive, or they won't make a lot of money from it, and therefore they don't do it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of acoustic consultants who are like this, ex-musicians, and thought they wanted to do to be a sound engineer or a musician, but they don't do it because it's not a stable life, and then it doesn't earn that much money usually, on average.
Well, I think the fact that I played in every genre right from the start, and when I got to college, I wanted to carry on doing all of it.
Yeah.
In my classical trombone lessons, I remember my teacher saying, no, you do jazz tonguing there. You've got to stop doing the jazz style. This is classical. So, okay. So I used to get the styles sort of mixed up sometimes and had to be reminded when I was studying.
Which is crazy, by the way. It's really good. And there's something I mentioned to you. There's artists and musicians are focused in a certain genre.
Yeah.
And they struggle really to go in another one.
Yeah.
Because they've been so focused on one.
Yeah.
But, you're definitely very talented. And I wonder if it's just due to talent or exposition as well. I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think I would say mainly being exposed to it from an early age and wanting to listen to every style of music as well.
Yeah.
My family would just listen to classical music at home. So I would hear that in the background and always hear that. But I sort of wanted to rebel against that. And I was putting on Stevie Wonder and anything other than classical music. So I was... And jazz, I'd put on Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, because I wanted to rebel against this classical music that was going on in the house. So I think I was exposing myself to every style as well. So then when I was studying, I would get them mixed up and have to be reminded. So this is Mahler. You can't do some jazz tonguing on.
Why not?
You could. Let's go in a different avenue. Jazz Mahler.
Yeah.
I did get sort of mixed up when I was sort of just doing my undergraduate. But then once I graduated and a few years out of college, I got offered a full-time orchestral job. And I chose to turn that down for two reasons. One was I was about to go in for a bone marrow transplant, and I knew I'd be out of action for about 2 years. And I thought, I can't put an orchestra through that. It's unfair. But also because I wanted to carry on doing everything. And I think for anyone starting out and wanting to freelance, I have students that come to me now that are on a classical course and they say, no, I don't want to be doing this. I want to go on the jazz course. I'm like, well, if you just go on the jazz course, you're then closing a door on the classical things. If you can do both, try and do both. There's no reason why you can't. And I think that's what I've always done, is keep every avenue open, which then invites more work in. So you're not just doing classical and fighting with the battling with all the freelancers there. You're in every genre, so you can pick up work from all sorts of different avenues. So there's more income streams available to you. And then with the sort of the presenting side of things and the media side of things, I always wanted to somehow bring that back into my life as well. So I got all the recording gear. I've got a really good studio at home. So I record trombone for various TV adverts, soundtracks, library music, production music, media composers. And I've built that up over the years. So I get quite a few composers who know that I can do that. So that's also another income stream. You can work from home. And I know some musicians who literally just do that because they've built up such a great studio at home, sounds fantastic, and a great reputation. You've always got to look after that. And your reputation's good, then people will come to you for that kind of work. So that's another income stream. And then the presenting and drama side of things, I thought, well, I've got all the studio gear. I want to try voiceover work. Why can't I do that? So that was something I added maybe 7 years ago. It just fits alongside music so easily. You work for maybe 1 hour maximum. That's how long the session is. So that fits around all the rest of your work. And actually that really took off when lockdown hit and all the studios, gigs, tours, they all cancelled. And voiceover artists with a home studio suddenly was super busy. And that was me. I was busier than I'd ever been in lockdown, working from home. So
many questions spring to my mind. What sort of, can you give some examples of voiceover programs, or what did you voiceover for?
I've done many corporate things. At the moment, there's a TV advert on, which is Carte d'Or Bailey's ice cream, which came out Christmas time. Obviously a very Christmassy thing, having Bailey's ice cream. So that's me doing that TV advert. So I think that's on TV for about a year. So see if you can catch that one. And I've done a few nature documentaries. There was one in Germany, one in don't know where else. Lots of corporate work.
Are you going to replace David Attenborough?
It's funny. When I started voiceover work, I thought, well, I haven't met him, but when I first started voiceover work, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to have a little ambition. Yeah. And my ambition was I need to narrate a nature documentary because to me, I don't know, David Attenborough, that's the pinnacle.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it was during lockdown that a company in Austria, I think it was, contacted me and said, I don't even know how they found me, but they said, can you do this 6-part nature documentary series for us? So I said, I'm interested, please give me the details. And the money was ridiculous because it was in perpetuity, worldwide usage. So it's available forever. And so, of course I can do this. And I do it from home. They gave me a guide vocal and the video and told me where each bit needs to go and the kind of voice they wanted. And I thought, well, I've made it. I've got this nature documentary. I'm going to have to send Sir David Attenborough a letter. So I sent him a letter and he wrote back to me. He handwritten letter saying, it basically said that it's funny business, this voiceover business. He said he got into it by accident because there was no budget for an actor. So the scripts that he wrote, he ended up reading them as well.
Yeah.
And he said, he finished the letter by saying, but I'm getting on a bit now, so I'm going to have to give up sometime. So good luck.
Yeah. Can you give us some, maybe not like detailed figures, but how much can you earn from doing all these activities? Does it equate to normal salary, or you have to do a lot of small things to make a living? It's more to understand, again, if you can have a decent salary from it, if you can live from it comfortably or not, and if it's really hard to make ends meet and you have to be constantly working to have, like, to pay your bills, basically.
I mean, I say I make a very comfortable living, but I think it's because I do all these different things, and I think if you speak to any sort of professional musician, freelance musician, who are really dedicated, they will say that it's pretty much a 24/7 job, because when you've got days off, there's promo you can be doing, that you can be doing. I don't like it. I love it and hate it. But social media is a tool for us as well. Yeah. So it's thinking about content that you can put out that keeps you relevant, keeps you current, and it's people in full-time orchestral jobs. They don't have to do that. They don't have to deal with that at all. They've got that comfortable salary. Yeah. But a freelance musician, I know some musicians don't do it at all. But I've noticed that the people that do keep themselves current and on social media, they carry on working. They're busy. So days off, I am either doing admin, emails, accounts, or thinking of content and keeping the networking going. Yeah. Which does make it a full-time job, I think. But for me, touch wood, it does seem to pay off.
You have to put some effort in, but it's always worth it. It's daunting at the beginning.
Yeah.
To put your face in public, and you need to make sure you don't share too much about your private life. Well, it's my opinion. But then the benefits of it are incredible.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Yeah. And it's amazing. You never know where the work's going to come from either.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I put out a Christmas video every year, and this year, just Christmas just gone, I put out just a lovely little ballad arranged for string quartet rhythm section.
Yeah, I listened to it.
And it cost me money to put it on, and I didn't get paid to do it. But sometimes you've got to invest in these things, and just from that, I've had a trombone festival saying, we really want you to come and play.
Amazing.
You never know where the work is going to come from. Yeah. So that's something to look forward to.
And I also find that if you chase some particular companies or people, you will probably not get anything from them. But works come from people you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And who've followed you for a while. Yeah. And heard about you like for ages, but they've never got in touch, never engaged with you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, isn't
it? It's kind of reputation as well. You've got to have that kind of a squeaky clean reputation. And I talk to students about that as well, because even when you're a student, people are talking about you right now.
Yeah.
And everyone's got an opinion about you, and people talk about you. And it's horrible to sort of think that, but as long as you've got a good reputation, you turn up early to everything, you play to the best of your ability, you work to the best of your ability, you're nice to everyone, you're not smelly, then people are going to like you. It's just a handful of things you've got to do right, and work will land in your lap, and it'll snowball as well. So the people you work with, you never know, that person 3 seats away from you will be going, she sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to get her number at the end of this gig. Or just get in touch with you like a month later and go, I met you on this, can you do this as well? So it's amazing how it does just snowball, and networks gets bigger and bigger.
You've played with quite a few very famous artists. Let's give an example like Sting. How did you get to play with him? And Seal and Rita Ora. How did you get to playing with all those guys?
I mean, the Sting gig, this is a prime example of getting on with people, because when I was studying at the RNCM, the trombone department, there was probably about 12 of us. Mm-hmm. And there was a trombone student that came as a master's student a few years above me. And I got on really, really well with him. He wasn't the best trombone player, but I got on really well with him. And he put together a trombone quartet, and we did a few gigs here and there. And we just had fun doing it. He never finished his studies. He left, but we stayed in touch just because we got on. But he was really, really good at presenting the trombone quartet, getting up there and talking to the audience. He had a real gift. And so I knew he was going to be destined for something big. And fast forward maybe 6, 7, 8 years, and he's working for Universal, the record label. And I was on tour with Seal, and there was a day off. I remember sitting on a sun lounger by the pool on a day off, and I got a call from him. So, what's he calling me for? I'm in Portugal. I called him. He picked up the phone. He said, Carol, I need an orchestra fixing for Sting, recording session and tour. I said, oh, okay. Well, you want me to fix the musicians? He said, yeah, please. Yeah, great. And I said, is there a trombone part? And he said, there is. And yes, you can fix yourself to play the trombone part. Great. Brilliant. So that's how I got the gig, was literally by getting on with someone at music college. Might not be the best player in the world at all, but there's so many different avenues in the industry, record labels, production managers. There's so many different avenues, and that's where he ended up. He went into working with Universal. He's now moved on to bigger and better things. It's amazing the contacts you make, and you don't know that is going to be a really useful contact.
Yeah. How do you see managing a family life with your style of work? I'm really interested to know, because I've had quite a lot of, from my own experience, being two parents, both parents work, it's really hard to look after kids and stay on top of just be with them first. And then they're starting school, and there's a lot of, you feel like there's a lot of pressure as well to educate them as well, to be there for them, to be doing their homework. How do you see that manageable? And I've heard also there's, it's just one single story, but a lady who's a violinist, and she kept having miscarriages because of stress and having to move, constantly travel.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty sad. And how do you see having a family life and a career like you have at the moment? Is it manageable?
I don't have kids and I don't have a partner. So at the moment it's managing quite easy. But I know friends of mine who are freelance musicians with kids, mum and dad with kids. And I know, I hear all the time it's that they're passing ships in the night. There's one of them comes home from a gig at 2:00 in the morning. The other one gets up at 5:00 in the morning, get the kids ready, goes and teaches music, and then swap again. They pick them up from school, get home, and then he goes out and does a gig. So it's kind of, difficult, really difficult. But I think...
Although sometimes the freelance flexibility allows you to have the time you need, at the right time for your kids as well.
Exactly.
So it depends how you manage it.
Yeah, so that's the good thing about freelance work is you do have a choice. You don't have to ask a boss if you can take some time off as well.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. And I know some friends of mine, the husband, he's got a really, really well-paid sound engineering job, which means that the wife, she doesn't have to take on as much work. Yeah. So she's there for the kids, a lot more present for the kids, which is amazing. So it's just balancing job by job when the work comes in, I think.
Yeah. When I started Atelier Crescendo, it's actually happened at the right time, because I could work in the morning, fit as much as I could, be really focused, and then look after my kids in the afternoon. And that kind of lifestyle would have never happened with a reduced salary, unless I had reduced my salary and work only part-time. But have let's say full-time job and manage your family as well. Be there for your kids. So being a freelance has pros and cons for family life.
And then, I hear about the sort of the rates for if you're just a freelance musician and that's all you do. The pay is not going to... I don't know, unless you're working literally constantly. Is the pay going to support you? Is it worth looking at other income streams? Like my voiceover work, I wouldn't say that looking for another income stream means you failed at being a musician at all. If anything, it can just make your life easier and you earn more money. So I think I've just always been very creative and always wanted lots of projects. So that's why I really enjoy doing the voiceover work. And I think actually having a musician's ear when the director asks you to do certain feeling in your voice or a little up or down or crescendo or a little bit more staccato, it's useful to have a musician's ear. So I think every musician should think about doing that alongside the music. If you've got a bit of recording gear at home, then there's no reason why you can't be earning money from home as well. And the money can be great as well.
Something we discussed with Michelle Phillips a little bit, but I feel like in the generation of our kids, we'll have several jobs at the same time. And not because they'll be artists, but they'll probably be freelance for a big company, and then they'll be able to have some time doing something very different. And because of maybe the social media, the way you work remotely with people, you work so much more remotely than before, and you'll be able to manage a very varied way of working and different jobs. And the RNCM seems to be really on top of it, trying to raise people's mind, or like the students stand back from a career and say, you're not just going to do this only, you're going to be doing loads of different things. And it seems like it's definitely a generation change. Before, you were staying in the same company or same job for all your life, and then now our generation changes jobs much more often. And I feel like the next generation is just going to work on loads of different things, very multidisciplinary things. Which is great. But I guess we need to educate our kids to get them to understand it and ready for it as well. Which you seem to have been very ready for. Maybe it's being open-minded like this.
It was something I was doing, what we call a sort of a portfolio career. And I remember coming to do lectures at the RNCM, Guildhall, a couple of other places where I basically showed what I was doing as a career. And I was doing this maybe 10 years ago, doing these lectures saying, there's no reason why you can't do this and this and this and this. There's no reason why you can't. And that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm making a living. And it's a very nice living as well. I earn enough money to keep myself going and have very nice holidays as well. So there's no reason why you can't do lots and lots of things at once.
And you've got a very nice van.
A nice van. Well, you can afford a very nice camper van then as well.
On this, because to explain the audience, you've got you released a few videos doing a tour of your van, which is very entertaining and makes me very envious because I'd like a van like this. Did you get sponsored? Why did you do these videos? Was it to get a bit more sponsored? Did you get approached by Volkswagen?
Well, it was actually because I was releasing some music in the summer. And I worked with, I hired this company for the sort of the release strategy and all the release campaign about the singles and then the EP that I released. And once it was all out, they said, well, to start off with, they coached me about the social media side of things. And I had to post every single day from, I think it was April through to August. And that's a lot of content. And I actually had to make a spreadsheet of ideas of what I'm actually going to post every single day on social media. I had no idea where to even start. But the way they coached me and the kind of content you've got to put out was... I just didn't understand how it was going to work, but it did. It literally did work. And then once the music was out and the EP was out, I was like, I can rest now. And they said, no, now we want a 10-part series, tour of your camper van with your music underneath it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So, and the idea behind that was because that will reach another audience completely, camper van audience, people that want to know about van life. And it did. Those
had loads of engagement on them.
Yeah,
on those
posts. Videos have been really, really busy.
Yeah.
And the idea was my music's going to be on the bottom of that. So people are going to click on it, click on the music, and then there'll be another audience there as well. And I had no idea that was even a thing. But this team that I was working with, absolutely amazing. And so that's why those videos went out. It was nothing to do with trying to get a VW sponsor, which would be very nice.
So you never got any sponsor in the end?
No.
Maybe you should contact them.
I should do now.
For their new electric vans.
Absolutely, I'd love one of those. Thank you.
There's any opportunities to do that as well. I'll be happy. One thing actually, we've been thinking of having a van because with that podcast, it's taking me everywhere, a lot of places in the UK and outside of the UK. I think it's going to start taking us outside. And I'd love to have that kind of, well, not lifestyle, but visit people with a van, make it a nice journey, and come back as a family. Well, as a family.
You've got your home with you. That's the beauty of it. I wish I got a camper van the moment I left music college and started freelancing full time, because it lends itself perfectly to anyone who's freelance. You've got all your stuff with you. You've got a shower. You've seen the videos. You've got a shower. I've got a toilet. I've got a bed. I've got 2 beds. I've got a kitchen. I've got everything I need. I've got my bottle of gin. I've got everything with me.
Obviously, the reason why I ask you all those questions about your career is for others as well, maybe, who might listen to the episodes and understand that they need to have a look at loads of different routes, not just a single one, because I felt during my music education that we were really tunnel visioned into teaching, and that's it, and nothing else. But there's so many opportunities there now that, as artists and general artists as well, not just music, through social media, mostly. But let's go. Let's talk about your what you've been through, your cancer. I've got a few highlights that I retained from your first episode of In My Vein. Is that the name of your podcast? Which is crazy, and I listened to it twice, and it made me 2 times emotional at the end, especially when you talked about Thomas. So you had cancer for 10 years, which is crazy, and you survived it, and you carried on working during the treatments. One treatment can cost up to $250,000, which is crazy monies as well, with staggering. And all specialists are 100% sure that playing the trombone contributed to you surviving. Yeah, which is mind blowing. And then it took you 2.5 years to produce your own blood, and you had to have transfusions every 2 weeks. Yeah, that was after the donor bone marrow transplant, where they take away your immune system completely and they give you your donor's immune system. And your blood type has got to change over to your donor's type. So I was originally O rhesus negative. And usually it takes weeks or maybe a month to swap over to your donor's type. My donor's type is A positive. Yeah. But for some reason, I couldn't produce any blood at all after the transplant. So
And all the specialists are just baffled. Don't know why I can't produce any blood. So they just keep having to top me up with blood every 2 weeks for 2.5 years. So even though I was cancer free by that point, finally, I was still tied to the hospital, and I was touring. I just started doing a tour in America, and red blood cells only last, I think it's just a matter of weeks before your body keeps producing them all the time.
Yeah.
So the fact that I couldn't produce any, they just depleted, and that's it, they're gone. And so I got to Chicago, did the East Coast of America, got as far as Chicago, and I suddenly just couldn't walk. I couldn't breathe. The oxygen, it's amazing until you sort of experience having no red blood cells, or very, very low red blood cells. I think got down to about 5. You just can't move your legs. The oxygen you need, you just get really stiff. You just can't move because you need the oxygen to move all your limbs in your body, and you need to be able to breathe. So they flew me back to the UK, topped me right up again, and then flew me back out to join the tour again, finish the rest of America.
That's crazy again. Can you do a small summary of like a teaser of your episodes?
Yeah.
I don't want to replace it again.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's a great episode to explain briefly.
So it was just maybe 2 years out of graduating, and I had a lump in the left-hand side of my neck, which is where you hold the trombone. So the trombone is all the weight on the left-hand side of the your left arm takes all the weight of the trombone. So this lump on the left-hand side of my neck, just above my collarbone, just felt like, well, it's just muscles going wrong. So I went to see a physio, and the physio said, don't like the look of that. I'll send you to your GP. GP also said, I don't like the look of that. Eventually, after lots and lots of tests, they came back, and it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the first test I then had to have was a full body CT scan to see if it spread anywhere. And unfortunately, it wasn't just in my neck, it was in between my lungs. It was 15 centimetres round in there, so really quite big in there.
It's massive.
And, and my first oncologist said chemotherapy starts on Tuesday. And I was like, hang on a minute, surely I've got a choice of like radiotherapy or some other that isn't, I'm not going to lose my hair like straight away. Mm-hmm. And I said, how about saving eggs as well? Because I'm like my early 20s, I might want to have kids. And he said, chemotherapy starts on Tuesday, see you on Tuesday. And it was like, okay, my life has changed dramatically straight away. So the first treatment, I think the success rate of getting to remission is so high, especially for someone in their 20s, really, really strong, healthy, otherwise healthy. I think it's like 98.99% chance of going to remission. Obviously, I was in the tiny percentage where I didn't get to remission from that treatment. And what I didn't know was after that 6 months of really, really horrible chemotherapy, feeling absolutely dreadful from those treatments, my prognosis then was skydiving. If that fails, then the next treatment isn't as successful. The treatment after that isn't as successful again. And I just kept going through treatment after treatment after treatment after treatment. That ABVD first chemotherapy failed. Then it was ESHAP chemotherapy that failed. And then BEAM chemotherapy that failed. A stem cell transplant from my own stem cells that failed. And then went through radiotherapy that failed. And once I'd finished, I think those 5 treatments back to back, which was about 2 years, they then told me that we've run out of treatments. That's it. I'm afraid you need to get your head around the fact that you need to write your will and get your affairs in order. And I'm like, hang on, I'm just in my early 20s. This can't be real. This is just nonsense. And my oncologist actually sent me to psychologists to get my head around the fact that I was dying, because they were afraid that I'm not taking this seriously. And I was busy touring, like you said earlier. I was touring with Michael Bolton for 3 years, and I went on tour with Seal for 6 years throughout all of this.
How did you do this? Why did you want? You mentioned it during the episodes that you wanted to carry on because you didn't want to stop your life. your life has to stop. So, and I think you did right, but obviously, the fact that you carried on working with cancer is crazy.
Right. I remember one person saying to me when I was going through the first 6 months of chemo, he said, "What, 6 months of chemo? And you're every other week you're doing chemo, and the weeks in between you're going on tour doing a West End show?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I couldn't do that. 6 months of chemo, I would shut myself away in my lounge for 6 months and just concentrate on getting through that." And I said, "Well, I couldn't do that. I think shutting myself away and just thinking about that 24/7, that would kill me alone." I think I have so many people who have come to me over the years who've said, "My mum's just been diagnosed," or "My aunt," or "My friend," or "My dad," "My brother" have just been diagnosed. What can I do to help them? And the first thing I say is they just need an escape. Mm-hmm. They need normality, and they need an escape because it is in there. It's in your head.
Yeah.
The moment when you wake up in the morning, there's always a split second for me when I go, right, where am I? am I at home? Am I in a hotel? Where am I? There's always a split second where you don't really know what day it is. You don't know you've got cancer in that split second. Mm. And then when you're more conscious, it hits you again.
Yeah.
You're like, I've got this cancer. And it's with you. It weighs down on you enough. If you can find some kind of escape, if it's watching a movie, which is 2 hours long, when you watch a movie, you just zone into that. Everything else doesn't exist. You go to the cinema, nothing else exists because you're in that. You're so focused in that. And that is an escape. You've got to find that escape just to have a bit of relief from it. And that's what my work was for me.
But what I wonder as well is, how were you able to do that physically as well? Did you have to be on drugs or before the gigs? Or it's just because obviously I've never been through chemo, but I've heard that it's really draining, and
some of it can be,
lose so much energy. So I wonder how you've been able to go through this and go on tours and gigs, which is really energy demanding.
I mean, you lose a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You go really pale. You lose your hair. You lose a lot of energy. But it was doing that work that gave me the energy back. And gave me the inspiration to carry on. Yeah. And it was the partner I was with at the time when I was going through that first 6 months of chemo. I'd have the chemo on the Tuesday, and the side effects would last until the Sunday evening.
Okay.
So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you feel absolutely dreadful. Mm-hmm. But the following week was a week without chemo, and that's the week I would go on tour.
Okay.
And so I'd be doing shows Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, 2 shows on Thursday, Friday night, and 2 shows on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Go home again on Sunday, ready for chemo on the Tuesday.
Okay.
And the start of that week, the Monday night show after the chemo week, was always like, can I do this? Can I do this? But what I've got to do is sit in my chair and play the trombone. I don't really need to do anything else. And as long as I'm okay to do that for sort of 2 hours in the evening, I can get through it. It's going to be fine. And then I'll have a hotel. And so I could take it easy in between all the performances. But by the end of the week of the shows, like the Saturday 2 shows, I was as much energy as everyone else.
Yeah.
You go out for dinner in between the shows, maybe have a couple of drinks after the last show. And it lifted my spirits because people treated me like normal. They didn't treat me like this cancer patient. They didn't treat me as though I'd lost lots of weight. I looked really grey and I'd lost my hair. Mm-hmm. They just treated me like normal. So I felt normal. And so that gave me the inner courage. Right, let's go in for this chemo week again.
Yeah.
There were lots of sort of times when I had to be shut away in hospital. The bone marrow transplant, at the end, the donor transplant, I was in hospital in an isolated room, probably the size of this room, for about 6 weeks. And that's hard mentally, that you cannot go anywhere. You are stuck in that room for 6 weeks. But it all worked eventually. But it was it was clinical trials that I had to sign up to in the end, because I exhausted every avenue of standard treatment. And the specialist said, well, we've run out of all these treatments that we give to people. There is nothing else unless you want to sign up to clinical trials, and we'll keep an eye out for anything if it gets invented, if it comes along. Yeah. So I said, yeah, of course, there's nothing else I can try. Then I either die or give this a go. So I'll sign up to anything you find. So the first clinical trial I went through, the specialist, there was no side effects at all. This was the first treatment where I didn't lose my hair. I didn't feel dreadful. There was just no side effects. I felt absolutely fine. It was just an infusion. And it's like normal. I just, hang on a minute, I'm meant to feel bad, surely? No, not at all. That's the way medical research is going and clinical trials are going. And eventually, hopefully, all the standard treatments will be replaced by these treatments that are much more tailored to your specific cancer. It's not just Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a certain protein that exists on the tumours that they can treat much more directly, that gives you more chance of remission and much less side effects. And this first clinical trial, my specialist looked at the results and said, okay, this has worked a little bit. And normally, if it's worked a little bit, it's just failed.
Yeah.
It's worked a little bit, it's failed, because they want you to get to remission. But this specialist said, it has worked a little bit. And I was like, he's using this language that I've not heard before. He said, this is interesting because this is the way we've got to treat you. Unfortunately, there are no drugs to treat you, but this is the kind of thing we need. So fast forward another couple of years, I had regular scans to see how fast the tumours were growing. Another clinical trial came along where I was shut in a lead-lined room for 9 days and injected with this highly radioactive drug.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I talked about this in my podcast.
I don't want to spoil it too much, though.
I know. So, I mean, you've got to go and listen to that podcast because I talk all about it. But I also do speeches now for medical companies all around the world. This year I've been to Mexico, Romania, Miami, all over the place, just doing a speech about what I went through for medical companies, clinical trial companies, just to basically share that clinical trials need to carry on. And I speak to the people that work in the marketing departments, the packaging departments, that might feel like what they're doing isn't worth anything. But actually, I met the people who have actually put the dose that got me to remission into a box and put the label on it. I've met those people who are just in a room this size and a production line, taking a box, putting treatment in it, putting a label on it, moving it to the next person. That is their job. But I've met those people and I've been able to have, I don't know, not many cancer patients get to actually say thank you.
Yeah.
And I walked through the whole factory of where these drugs are made and enormous warehouses. And then there's a whole section of placebos that are all boxed exactly the same as the actual drugs. So you go through a trial, of course, there's going to be some people that are going to be given the placebos, but it's got to be packaged exactly the same. It's got to look exactly the same.
You can't be labelled placebo.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously.
So I went through here, I was completely mind blown by going through this factory, meeting the people who packaged the drug that got me to remission, that saved my life. And I gave my speech to these people and they've stayed in touch, which is amazing. And they sent me such amazing messages saying that I'm the first person they've met, a patient they've actually met that's been through something that they're producing. And they said, you've given me the focus that I needed all these years. And I suddenly realized why I'm doing this as a job. And I said, yeah, you are saving lives. You might just feel like you're just putting a label on a box, but you're still contributing to saving someone's life.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to stop here with the story because Yeah, again, I don't want to spoil
you have to go and listen to the first episode of my podcast, which is called In My Veins.
I'll put a link in the descriptions of all the platforms.
Thank you.
One last question, and then I'll go to the final questions, more about venues and performing. Do you have a life insurance?
No, I don't think I do. Is that in terms of... I know pianists can insure their fingers, can't they?
I, as obviously in any jobs, you can have one. I started to have one because if you're ill or if you're injured and you can't do your job, then you need to still be able to make a living.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I did have some life insurance when I was ill, and my house got paid off because of that. And I'm actually talking to my financial advisor now to see, now I'm 12 years in remission, whether I'm entitled to take another policy out or not, because you've got to wait such a long time. You've got to wait a long time.
Yes.
I thought it was 10 years, but now I'm 12 years, maybe.
Another question I was going to ask you and sprung to my mind this morning. Have you recovered your immune system? Is it working perfectly well now? Because you say during the episodes that you had to take it completely up to scratch. It was like a baby immune system. You had to take all the viruses you needed to build it up.
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
So post bone marrow transplant, I've now got I've got my donor's DNA and my donor's blood type. And in theory, I've got the same immune system as him. So the idea is you've then got a better immune system than your original immune system. I think because of all the back-to-back treatments that I had for about a decade, which is just poison after poison after poison, it has affected my production of antibodies, which is your immune system, basically. So I have to inject immunoglobulins, which is antibodies, once a week at home. Just comes in a little syringe and I just inject it into my tummy. It takes about 10, 20 minutes. And each of those syringes, which, it's not very big, and it's just a clear liquid, but that's come from 2,000 people's blood donations. And they take the antibodies out of people's blood donations and make this immunoglobulin. And the good thing about these injections as well is they're coming from people who have had COVID and then donated blood, or they've had the COVID vaccinations and then donated blood. So in these antibodies, I'm now getting some COVID antibodies as well. Great. So that is also helping keep me protected from COVID. And I've had 8 COVID vaccines now as well, which is quite a lot of vaccines. But the first 3 or 4 didn't even have any effect on me for some reason. Didn't.
That makes me want to... I'm going to sign up for to give my blood regularly now.
Donating blood is one of the most amazing things that anyone could do. The amount of times over the 2.5 years that I needed blood transfusions, and I'd turn up to hospital and have to wait for blood because the hospital has run out of blood. It's frightening, actually. And sometimes you see those motorbikes carrying blood from hospital to hospital. There's a shortage of every single type of blood. And if I'd known how important it was, I would have donated blood before I went through everything I went through. But now I'm obviously not allowed to because I went through a type of blood cancer. So my brother's now got a blood cancer. Cancer has been affected our whole family. My mum went through breast cancer 5 years ago. My dad sadly passed away of kidney cancer. My brother's now got blood cancer. And it's everywhere. It's 1 in every 2 people.
I'm very sorry.
You get cancer now. But donating blood and even being a bone marrow donor is so much easier than you think. When I interviewed my actual donor about what it was like to donate, he said he signed up to become a donor because there is recruitment procedure going on to get more donors, and he got half a day off work if he signed up. So that's why I did it. So he got half a day off work. And then when he donated, so the week leading up to the transplant, he had an injection every single day to boost his blood count. So he had loads and loads of cells to donate. And he said he felt a bit achy because of that, because that's his bone marrow working really, really hard. The inside of his bones are working really hard, producing all these cells. So that's why he felt a bit achy. And then from the moment he donated, the aches went away. And he had a needle in one arm, a needle in the other arm, and the blood whizzed out of one arm like he was donating blood. The machine took what it needed and everything else, gave it straight back. And that afternoon he went back to work. And that was it.
As simple as that.
Yeah.
But you never think about it.
No, most people think it's really painful, and no, that's the patient.
Exactly, yeah. I feel very guilty of not going so often.
But people don't know, and I think it's. I don't know how the donating the registers can actually get the message out there to say, actually, it's really simple, and you will save so many lives. And my donor still to this day says it's the best thing he's ever done, which is amazing. He's a complete stranger. Well, he was.
So, last questions to finish. I used to have loads of questions, a few questions on venues. I've stopped them, but now, since you've been touring in loads of different places around the world, I thought I'd bring them back up, and ask them more. And I've got also some other questions about the artists you played with. So, what's your favorite venue as a performer?
I think when I think about venues, I kind of think about sort of playing orchestrally with an orchestra in a concert hall. And I think the two halls that you always get it's a bit like when you go and record in Abbey Road studios, you get this kind of like, oh, it's Abbey Road.
Have you done it?
Yeah, many times. And I think Birmingham Symphony Hall and Manchester Bridgewater Hall are two fantastic halls for acoustic. And playing in those halls, it just feels amazing. I think Royal Albert Hall is so big that it's kind of...
it's too big.
Yeah, it kind of gets lost.
Yeah.
But you get the magical feeling of being in there because it's all in the round.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're my sort of handful of... but I think touring the world is so difficult to... And look at me choosing places in the UK. But I think, there's some amazing places all around the world as well. But, I mean, I've done...
Have you been in Tanglewood before?
Where?
Tanglewood.
Tanglewood. No, I don't think I have. No.
Where you can either close it or it's open to a large screen.
Yeah, no, I've not. No, I've been there, but not performed.
Okay.
But, I mean, the variety of things I've done as well, it's just... I mean, the gig I did with Sting was at Durham Cathedral. And you could hear a pin drop because it was Sting. And that was magical. But then, I mean, I've done a gig on a helipad on a super yacht in Saint-Tropez. And to me, that was just such an amazing experience as well. And that's not a venue, but I think a musician can take you to so many places that it's... I don't know, until it doesn't feel like a job to me. And I think if it ever does feel like work, then it's time to go and do something else.
You've played with quite a few artists, very famous artists, and I would like you to give a word to qualify each of them. And I'm going to give their name, and you give me the qualifying word.
Okay.
Seal.
Family.
Sting.
Focused.
Rita Ora.
Brilliant.
Queen.
Legendary.
Bon Jovi.
Cool.
Michael Bublé.
Sexy. It's got to be, hasn't it?
Taylor Swift.
Excellent.
Ellie Goulding.
Distant.
Amy Winehouse.
Natural.
And Muse.
Awesome.
Camry was an amazing episode. I think it's one of the most amazing episodes I've ever done with High Point, and I'm truly honest with that.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's a real pleasure.